big mouth anyway. Okay, a few little housekeeping that I want to do. Number one, I want to open this up with, and I didn't expect to be doing this, but just a moment of thought for the victims of Hurricane Michael. You know, I knew one person, I thought she was dead. She was my first editor. She texted me about an hour ago, Mazel Tov to me, so she's safe. But I just want to take a moment just to reflect that we dodged one, they didn't, and hopefully they'll be okay. Okay, everybody can hear me? Okay, do I even need this?
No.
Okay, all right. Can you hear me okay?
I'd use it.
All right, I'm going to use it. Okay. A few questions because this is not going to be a PG event. First of all, is everyone here over the age of 18 years old? Okay, so there's no kids. Okay. Anyone here grew up, I know the answer because I know most of the people, grew up in and around South Florida circa 60s to the 80s? Okay. All right. Anybody here who has or hasn't read the book? Okay, so you have not read the book? Okay, good, because I don't want to be a spoiler alert or spoil the end should you want to get it. It's definitely a twist, and I don't want to do it. So, I want to just share with you real briefly. There's some relevant issues and platforms that are happening in today's world. We all know about them. And ironically, 5 of them that are in my book that I've been writing over 19 years are relevant in today's world. One of them is drug addiction, which I experienced and I became an expert on. Incarceration and loss of civil rights. Sexual molestation. Sexual abuse of men in power and authority. It wasn't me, it was my ex-wife. Bullying, discrimination, and bigotry. I was a victim of it. And of course, transgender rights, LGBT rights. So, these are the 5 major platforms that take up the book. But, since my book is predominantly heavy with dialogue, I asked a few people, including a friend of mine here, you know, if I start reading from the book, you know, it's a lot of dialogue and, you know I wouldn't want to be reading. I can, you know, more or less ad-lib what's going on and take some, you know, make some mental notes and talk to you about it. So I'm going to do what I think is best, is to present the story. I might read a little bit, and then I'm going to open it up for questions, and I encourage you to ask any questions, and I'm sure you will once you hear some of the content. So, first thing I want to ask, does anybody want to know what the daily life of an active drug addict is, or has any idea what a daily life is when you're an active drug addict? Okay. Well, guess what? I was, and I'm going to tell you. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what it's like being a crackhead. Because I was a crackhead for 2.5 years. Okay? And there's a lot of scenes in the book about the things I did, you know, while, you know, to try to get my crack, to score my crack, to, you know, do whatever I needed to do to get my crack cocaine. This is all growing up in Miami Beach, not South Beach. That was no such thing. This was Miami Beach, where it was Mariolitos, it was elderly people, it was a rundown community. But I'm going to tell you one particular scene of how I lived my life for a period of time. I had a job, and I'm kind of going out of order, but I need to share this with you. I had a job working for Temple Emmanuel. Temple Emmanuel in Miami Beach was a very prominent conservative Jewish synagogue. And I worked for a woman named Nancy, I'll leave her last name off. She was the head of the sisterhood. The sisterhood of Temple Emmanuel comprised of women, and very wealthy women. A lot of these women lived on North Bay Road, LaGorce Island. They lived in places where they had $1 million homes that all they were interested in were putting on charity events. They made a lot of money, their husbands did. And so I was her gopher, this woman, Nancy's gopher. So I would go to all these homes and I would, set up the parties and whatnot. But during the day when I had a chance, being a crack addict, here's how an average day went. I'd get up, I'd drag my butt in, and then during a break, I would get in my car and I'd cruise down Washington Avenue, Collins Avenue, and I'd be scouring the gutters for cigarette butts. Okay, the reason why cigarette butts is because as a crack addict, when I smoked crack, and my favorite method of smoking it was a Lipton iced tea can, lemon flavored Lipton iced tea can. No pipe, no glass pipe. It wasn't freebase. I was poor. The rich did freebase. I did pure old street crack. And in order to smoke it, you'd have to get ashes. So you would take an aluminum can, you'd poke holes in it, and then you'd get ashes from cigarettes, put it on top of the hole, and then you'd get the crack rock and hope it's crack, not something else like rat poisoning or whatever. Put it on top, and then you'd huff it. So my day was spent when I wasn't working. I could sneak out, trolling the streets of South Beach, Miami Beach, fingernails dirty, sweating, and whatever, trying to get ashes. And then what I'd do is I'd hold them out of the car window while I'm driving so the cigarettes would burn, since I didn't smoke cigarettes, didn't want to get addicted. It was okay being addicted to crack. And that would be the thing I'd do. Then I'd come back to work, and then my lunch break would take, I'd go into the bathroom, lock myself in the bathroom, and smoke the crack. Then I'd come out sweating like a pig, paranoid, always fearful of the IBI coming over to get me. The IBI is the Imaginary Bureau of Investigation. Similar to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, but the Imaginary Bureau of Investigation. And this is how I would live my life as a crack addict while never reading, never bathing, never showering, and losing weight. But Nancy didn't seem to see it, and I held my job. So that was one scene. Another scene I want to talk about as far as drugs and addiction, which happens to be my favorite drug, and thank God they were outlawed, was Quaaludes. Anybody ever heard of Quaaludes? Okay. Well, let me just cut to the chase. I averaged 3 Quaaludes a day for 10 years. I did about 10,000 in 10 years.
How many?
10,000 Quaaludes in 10 years I swallowed. Now, there was a lot of consequences with doing Quaaludes. A lot of them are in the book, but I'm going to tell you one incident that happened because I want to show you the depths of which an active addict will go to and how low I was in my life and the way I lived my life. So, I went to college in Tampa after I left home. After I graduated from Miami Beach High in 1970, I left home in 72, and my mother died. I had no parents. I was an orphan, and I left home, and I moved to Tampa. And in Tampa, it was a drug-fueled, crazy world of women, sex, women, drugs, rock and roll. I was a rock and roll concert promoter. I was also a drummer. And with this scene comes more drugs, more sex, more Quaaludes, more rock and roll, and of course cocaine, and injecting cocaine. But I'm not going to go into shooting cocaine because that was a short-term period. Anyway, many scenes of Quaaludes. Many broken bones, many car accidents. Alone, I cheated life 4 times. I should have died at least 4 times doing Quaaludes. But there's one scene I want to show you how the depths of, that I would go through to get high and stay high, and then I'm going to get on with the book. So I'm with my good friend Andrea, and we're platonic friends, and we're going from Tampa to St. Petersburg for the what do you call it, the movie, for the world premiere of a movie called Deep Throat. Okay? In case you don't know what Deep Throat is, Deep Throat was the preeminent porn movie that made, I mean, you know, was the movie at the time. So we're driving across from Tampa to St. Petersburg, and we're driving across something called the Howard Franklin Bridge, which is like I-75, which is just like the 7 Mile Bridge. You can't get off once you get on. It's straight. There's no way to turn off, pull over, or whatever. Now in my life, the way I live my life is basically defined by music lyrics. And my music lyrics that I like are one song by Billy Joel called I Go to Extremes. So for my life, it was either too high or too low. There ain't no in between. And so moderation is something I never knew how to spell. Okay? And still to this day. I'm an addict today, but I'm a different addict, and that's another story. Anyway, so my life was, you know, I love Quaaludes. And if I didn't have enough Quaaludes on any given time to get not stoned but fucked up, I wasn't interested. There was no such thing as getting a buzz or drinking 1 or 2 beers and having enough. I'd either have to drink, and I didn't drink by the way, but you know, just as an you know, as an example. So anyway, we're driving across the bridge, and I took 3 Quaaludes on an empty stomach because I had it down pat. The empty stomach gets it going faster. So we're driving in a brand new, it's called an Opel Kadett. It's like a 1974 royal blue with black interior, brand new car. First time we're going to St. Petersburg to see Deep Throat. So we're driving on the bridge, and I'm the driver, I'm the passenger. And I said to Andy, Andy, I think I'm getting real high. She says, Steven, don't you fucking dare. She said, Andy, I said, I don't know what, I can't hold it. So I'm going to kill you. You know, and she was my platonic friend. She said, I don't care what you do, don't do it. I said, I got nowhere to go. You're going to have to pull over. I said, I can't. And I rolled down the window. As soon as I rolled down the window, I threw up. And as I'm going 70 miles an hour, the vomit's coming back into my face, into the car, into the floor, and everything. Okay? The only reason why I tell you this is because this is how excessive of an addict I was. And what did I do? While she couldn't stop because we were getting hit and killed, what am I doing? I'm looking on the floor for the pills to see if they hadn't dissolved yet, so I could wash them off or wipe off with a tissue so I could swallow them again. Well, I got vomit all over me. Anyway, that's just an example of how I lived my life, you know, as an active drug addict for 22 years, from the time I was 12 to the time I was 35. Or just before my bar mitzvah, maybe 13 to the time I was 35 years old. Anyway, so that's that. That's what I wanted to say. And that's the joyful life of a drug addict, in case you don't know. You know, today, I wouldn't even know anything about the drugs. Now, let's get into my story. Okay, so, here's my book. I can do one or two things. I can read portions of it, but it's dialogue heavy. And I don't know if it would bore you, because if I start, then it'll stop, so I don't know, but I'm going to give it a shot. So I'm going to try to keep it short because I want to open it up to Q&A. But anyway, the book starts out, I get a phone call from my sister Susan, telling me that my uncle, Butch, is dead. And I'm ecstatic, because I hated the bastard, you know, and I hated him because he abandoned me when I was a young boy. He was my mother's brother. He was the only male role model I had in my life, and quite frankly, when I needed somebody, a man, to help me, because I was a young kid, I had no father figure. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know anything. He wasn't there, and as such, you know, he basically abandoned me. And I can get into the details of what happened, but you know, it started in 1999, and the title is called The Strangest Conversation I've Ever Had. And I'll just read just a little bit, because, you know, if you're gonna, it's heavy on dialogue and I don't want to bore you. Okay. I shouldn't have gone back into the house. I had a lunch date with the irresistible Valerie, but as fate would have it, I pulled the front door closed when the phone rang. I stopped my key mid-lock on the fifth ring and waited for the answering machine to pick up. From outside, the voice was a little muffled, but clearly it was my sister Susan. "Stephen, if you're there, please pick up, it's important." My sister's voice sounded urgent, but she had a flair for the dramatic, and she always managed to suck me in. But I heard it, damn it. In an instant, I was torn as both adrenaline and curiosity kicked in. I wanted to go to Sushi Cyan with Valerie and then go back for dessert to her house, and dessert was not something that was on a menu. Okay? But I was also curious as to what my sister was, you know, all about and what the problem was. So, I hear my sister saying, "Stephen, please be there." I grabbed the phone, picked up. "What's up?" I asked. She says, "Is this a bad time? We need to talk." The urgency in her voice worried me. Didn't seem to be in pain or anything of that nature. Now I'm skipping around a little bit just to, you know, kind of keep you guys, you know, amused. So, "Is this a bad time? We need to talk." "Actually, I'm busy. I was heading out the door. Can this wait until after lunch? I have a date." "No," she replied. "No, it can't." Her voice was low, shaking, and I knew something was very wrong. "What is it? Tell me." I didn't think I wanted to know the answer, at least not right then at that moment. So I was staring at the kitchen wall, then thinking of Valerie's kitchen wall, and the last time I was there, it was a week ago, after dinner. It felt good to remember the softness of her skin and how she felt in my arm. The smell of her perfume on her neck was intoxicating, and the candle's flame danced in my eyes as our lips met. By the way, this is 1997, and I've been clean and sober since 1987. Okay? So, "Stephen, are you there?" I snapped out of my reverie. "What? Yeah, I'm here." I was annoyed at her. My sister took a deep breath, then another, and then went silent. "Shit, Susan, I can't help if you don't tell me what's wrong." "I'm trying to figure out the best way to tell you." "Please stop the drama. I'm hungry. Valerie's hungry. I don't have time for this crap. Just tell me, what is it? Is this one of your..." No, please, Stephen." My sister was prone to emotional drama. "Whatever it is, just tell me, goddammit." I snapped back. "Uncle Butch is gone," she blurted out. "What? What do you mean gone?" "Stephen, we have no more Uncle Butch. Is gone for good, forever." Fan-fucking-tastic. Is that all you wanted to tell me? That's great news. I don't know why you were so worried about telling me. This is the kind of news you shout from the rooftops. It's almost a cause for celebration. Didn't you know how much I hated Uncle Butch? He abandoned me. I got pissed every time I think about it. I'm glad the bastard's dead. She hesitated for a moment before going on. "Uncle Butch is gone, but there is an Aunt Gloria, though." What the fuck was she talking about? Who the hell is Aunt Gloria? I didn't know he remarried. He sure liked women, didn't he? I went on. 3 wives, lucky bastard. His first 2 wives were gorgeous. Do you remember? "Stephen, it's not like that." There was an edge in her voice. An edge I wasn't used to. "Uncle Butch is..." I interrupted her. "Cheer up, Susan. His death is a cause for celebration. Damn, I wish I'd been there at the end before he died. I would have gotten a lot off my chest." "Don't be so hard on him. There's stuff you don't know," Susan said. "Fuck him. I'm glad he's dead. The world's a better place without that bastard. Self-centered, narcissistic bastard." Here we go again. "I don't have time for this shit, Susan. I got a date and I'm running late." "No, wait, Stephen, don't go!" She pleaded into the phone. "Call Valerie, postpone your lunch. Tell her it's a family emergency. It's important that we talk right now. There's something you need to know about Uncle Butch. Can you come over?" It would have been easier for me to let the phone drop a few more inches, settle in the cradle, and to have this strange conversation end. But it didn't. And I could get on with my day, but it didn't. But even though my libido was begging me not to, except to move and pick up Valerie, I put the receiver back to my ear. Stephen, are you there? Yes, I'm here. Stephen, please come over. I need to tell you what's going on. It would be better in person. What happened? I inherited his junkyard business? No, Stephen, I already told you there's no will. Nobody inherited anything. Just come on over. All right, Susan, chill out. Let me call Valerie. I'll be right back. I'll be right back over. I'll call you right back. Sure, I was bitter, but as dramatic as Susan could be, something told me this was different. Boy, Susan, you sure know how to fuck up a beautiful day. Okay, and then I go on to talk more, but then I go over her house, and then she tells me what it's all about. And in case you don't know what it's all about, my macho, heterosexual, homophobic, pit bulldog uncle, my mother's brother, Uncle Butch, who looked like Edward G. Robinson and owned auto junkyards, decided one day he's going to have an epiphany and he was going to become a woman. And rather than get into everything in the book, because I go into great detail on what he's going to do, let's just say his plan was to cut off his penis, cut off his, not vagina, his testicles, and build a vagina. And this was a macho heterosexual man, okay? Never in his life did I ever dream this or whatever. Okay, so that's what she told me. Now, chapter 2, well, before I get to chapter 2, she begged me to go meet my uncle. My uncle was asking for her to meet me because he knew that I didn't like him and I wished him dead every day for 35 years. But he was going to a church to do a lecture and asked me to show up, and I didn't want to show up, and we had a big argument. But my sister was begging me to go. I asked Valerie, and she said, "I'll hold your hand. I'll go. If anything happens, we'll get out of the church right away. I promise." So, once again, I can go into the scene of going to the church, driving to the church, looking around at all these freaks, these guys that look like women, these women that look like guys look like guys, I mean, and on and on and on. And, like I said, it's all in the book, but at the end of the day, I was scared out of my mind. I had no conception of what my uncle would look like as a woman and didn't want to know. As far as I was concerned, he was dead. But I found out what he looked like, and to my surprise, he wasn't a bad-looking woman. And I was like, "Stephen, wake up from this dream, you're clean now. This is not normal thinking." And then I had an epiphany in my head for a second. Is this hereditary? Is this congenital? Is this something that I'm predisposed that when I become 60-something, I'm going to cut my penis off, and I'm going to become a lipstick lesbian, because he cut off his penis and penis and testicles, and he's a woman loving women. As he told me, we went through this whole transgender issue. For many years we did hundreds and hundreds of, interviews on TV and in schools and all over. He just liked women, but he wanted to be a woman liking women. So I got to find out that there's two types of lesbians. One's a lipstick lesbian and one's is a butch lesbian. Butch turned out to be a lipstick lesbian. So anyway, that's that. Now, as I go back into the book, I'm just going to run really quickly through how the book is written, then I'm going to open it up to questions because I'm assuming there's a bunch of questions. So the way I wrote it is, I bring the audience back. So this was 1999 when I met my aunt, okay? And I had already achieved a long-term 10 years of being clean, and my life had turned around from the outhouse to the penthouse. I was doing phenomenal. Life was good. I fell in love with pets. Animals were my passion and my career, and I was doing super. Okay, so I talk about, going back, from the time I was a kid, And as I mentioned, there was 5 platforms, so I'm just going to read real quickly how these 5 platforms came into my life that are all relevant today. One of them is, well, I was born in LA and moved to Miami when I was 5. Then when my mom met my stepfather, and my mom and the fact that she was divorced, well, that's a whole other issue, a whole story about my mom. She met this guy, fell in love, they got married, and we left Miami Beach and moved to Kendall. Bought a house right near Baptist Hospital, halfway between Baptist Hospital and Dadeland. And it was literal hell, because it was an upscale community of waspy rednecks. That's the only way I can put it. I won't say they're hillbillies, but they were high-class professional rednecks. And they didn't like Jews. And I'm Jewish. They didn't like Jews. They didn't like hippies. They didn't like anything that wasn't like them. And here I am at 13 years old, coming from Miami Beach. Now, I was about 6'2", 2.5", and I was a musician, and I loved music. I just loved it. My life was music. My idol was Mark Lindsay. Does anybody remember who he was?
Yeah.
Paul Revere and the Raiders.
Yeah.
He was the one with the ponytail. And I used to dress like him. I had a ponytail as best as I could, my hair in bangs. I'd wear the puffy shirts, and I'd look totally out of place in a redneck community. And I was a Jew. So needless to say, I got picked on, I got humiliated, I got called every single name you could think of. You kike, you dirty Jew bastard, you know. Why did Hitler not, how did Hitler not kill you? How did he miss you? You know, you're a big target. Maybe we can find a way in which, you know, he can kill you. Where's your horns? I don't see your horns. All this shit about being Jews. Now, I'm not able to handle this because I don't know what's going on. Father figure. My mother and my stepfather are in Haiti. They started a business together and made a fortune in Haiti in the blood business. But that's a whole nother world for a whole nother story. They became very famous, and meanwhile I was left alone with this big house, you know, all to myself. And I'm getting picked on. So one day, I'm on the school bus going to school, excuse me. And I'm sitting on the bus, minding my own self because nobody liked me. All of a sudden, a couple guys come over to me and sit down beside me. And I'm thinking, oh, this is nice. They want to be friends with me. So they sit one on each side of me. All of a sudden, they stand up, block the view from the driver, and there's 2 of them behind them. So there's 4 people, and I'm in the middle. And they pull out a pair of scissors, and they chop my hair off. They tie me up, they pull off my sweater, tie my hands behind my back, and they cut my hair, chop it off. Gave me a shitty haircut, by the way. Okay, I remember it like it's 5 minutes ago. And I was humiliated. And then and the bus driver didn't do a thing. So I go to school, and everyone's laughing at me. They're laughing at me because they know what's happening, okay? But there was this one prick named Dennis, and I'm going to say his last name because he's the only person in the book that I mentioned by first and last name. His name is Dennis Hartman. And if I find him, I'd like to make amends to him for what I did to him. But anyway, when you talk about bullying, you know, that was one incident. Then another incident was I was in the men's bathroom, and a couple guys come in. I mean, the boys' bathroom, Killian. His first year, Miami Killian was open. They come in, and they shut the door behind them and lock it. And I'm thinking, uh-oh, what's this all about? Next thing I know, they shove my head in the urinal. And they flush it, they piss on it, and here I am, soaking wet with water, piss, and, you know, all my clothes are all wet. And they keep asking me, you know, when are you going to grow some balls and fight, you little Jew bastard? Are all you Jews like this? You don't fight, you just turn the other cheek? You know, piss, and they pick on me. And I had nobody to deal with. I had nobody to help me. But the one thing I remembered, when my uncle, when I was a little boy, he would take me to his auto junkyard in Miramar. And he would, you know, being a bastard that he was always mean. But he would always give me little pointers. And I asked him one day, because I saw that he was going to get in a fight, I said, how do you deal with that bullying, and how do you deal with somebody that's going to fight with you? He says, let me tell you something. Always remember this. When you think you're going to get in a fight, or you know there's no way out, okay? I'm going to give you a few lessons. Number one lesson is, there are no rules. Number two, you get the first punch in. Number three, you get the first kick in. Number four, you get in everything, okay? And don't waste time, okay? Because you never know. You never get a second chance. So, anyway, there was one guy's named Dennis Hartman. He would constantly pick on me. He'd embarrass me. And, you know, because I love girls so much, I was always trying to be, you know, hip, slick, and cool. But I couldn't be because I was being picked on. So, anyway, they decided the best way to deal with this is we're going to have a fight. So it was a Saturday morning, and I remember it. We were meeting at my friend's front yard, big house, big yard, and, you know, I was scared shitless, but I had to show up because if I didn't, I couldn't take this. I wanted to kill myself. I had no way out. There was a friend of mine named Bob who used to come over from Miami Beach, sneak out at night, come over from Miami Beach, he'd pick me up. We'd drive around, smoke pot in his father's Ford Fairlane, and we drive, you know, and try to pick up women and never got anywhere. So that was the only thing that I could relate to. But when Bob wasn't there, I didn't have any drugs to take away the pain of what was really happening to me. Anyway, this fight's about to start. And I go to the yard, I go to my friend's front yard or acquaintance, and there's a shitload of people there. I mean, I'm thinking there's a few, there must have been 40, 50 kids, all around in a big circle, you know, and they're cheering me on and everything, and then there's Dennis over there, you know, clean cut looking guy, nice white teeth and everything, and there's me, I'm shaggy. And then they start saying, and then somebody says, and here's the rules. And I hear this, and here's the rules. And remember what my Uncle Butch said, Stephen, there are no rules. And that's when I realized, here's my chance. So I hit him. I hit him. I punched him. I kicked him. I got him on the ground. I remember my uncle telling me, you hit him in the throat. You hit him in the side of the knees. You kick him in the balls, and these are the vulnerable points. You shove his nose through his brain because that'll kill him instantly. And don't waste any time, okay? And so I did everything I could because I'm hearing this, and meanwhile I'm on the ground, and like what seemed forever was only a few minutes because all of a sudden people were pulling me off. What's going on? What's happening? What's happening? And I'm going like this. And they said, it's over, it's over, it's over. And I'm in a panic. Turns out that I beat Dennis almost to death. His face was like looking like spaghetti, sauce, and pasta. And I realized at that time I had a bad temper when you pissed me off. And from that day on, I was a hero. I was never picked on. I was respected. The girls liked me. The guys liked me. After Dennis got massive teeth renovation or rehab or whatever, his whole mouth got rebuilt. He made friends with me, and then everything was fine. But then that was the first and only year we moved back to Miami Beach, where I felt a little more comfortable. So that was my one issue. That was about bullying, about, you know, discrimination, bigotry, etc. Now, just want to get into another one. Anybody? Let me take some questions so far. Anyone's questions so far? Questions? Anybody? No? Okay. All right. So the next discussion that I want to talk about is. Should I come back?
I had a question.
Oh yes.
When you said the two
Oh,
kinds
Lisa.
of... Yes,
hi, Lisa. How are you?
Hi, Stephen. You said the lipstick lesbian, and there was another kind, and what's the difference?
The butch lesbian.
But his name was Butch. How come he
Has
was
nothing to do with
No.
it. A lipstick lesbian looks like you.
Yeah.
Pretty, attractive, feminine. Okay.
Yeah.
A butch lesbian looks like me.
Oh.
Okay.
So even though he was heterosexual, he liked women.
He liked
became a
women.
lipstick?
He liked women. Yes. He just wanted to be a woman liking women. So that's why
So
he
like
cut it all off.
lesbian.
Why didn't he become a butch lesbian?
Yeah. Well,
Because
no,
because
he
of
was
his
a woman.
ego. He is the most, and I don't want to be political, but I can only compare it to one person. I think his narcissism is so huge that Donald Trump takes lessons from him on how to be narcissistic. That's the best way I can explain it. He's a narcissistic, you know, he couldn't fit into that door frame, you know. So that's the answer. Did I answer your question?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So now the next section that I want to talk about. Okay. So that's that. I moved back to Miami Beach, and then my parents buy a house on Sunset Island number 4. Now at this time, there were no Jews allowed in a lot of places in Miami Beach. You know, Jews were only allowed in Sunset Island 3 and 4. You couldn't be this, that's a lot of racism, bigotry, anti-Semitism, whatever. So now I'm going to school at Beach High. So I feel a little different because at least there I'm around Jews, okay? But once again, I have no parental supervision. I'm totally a wild child on my own. And the issue that I had with my self-esteem is I was very shy. I had low self-esteem, okay? And low self-esteem was causing me a lot of problems. The problems is that I couldn't go up to a girl. I was afraid of rejection. I was always afraid of rejection. Big, big problem, you know. In school, I did lousy at school. I did the bare minimum, and I just had issues with rejection. But the one thing that I found, which changed everything, I fell in love with something that turned my whole life around, and that was barbiturates. I mean, this before Quaaludes. Barbiturates and hash. Because when you're stoned, and I knew that I became an addict, now your inhibitions are dropped, and I felt there wasn't anything I couldn't say. And I had a girlfriend, and I always had 2. As a matter of fact, I had one girl that I was crazy madly in love with for 4 years. And she's in the book. Her name is Shulman, and we'll leave it at that. She was a saint. She was a saint, and then I had all the other girls. Okay, and so that school, I was left alone, and that's when my proliferation of getting high became more and more and more. Okay, so then my mother and my father are married. They were going to Haiti a lot. I'm living in this house and working, and I'm not doing good because in Miami Beach in those days, there was two types of people, the haves and the have-nots. I was a have-not living in a have world. You know, I had nothing. All I had was an address. Didn't do me any good, you know. And I had to work, and I had no time for any pleasure, except in the nights when I would have my house parties, and we'd play strip poker, and we'd get high, and spin the bottle, and it would get out of hand. And it's in the book what happens. I won't go into it now. But it was involved sex, rock and roll, and drugs. Okay, so then comes another devastating time in my life. My mother, at 41 years old, abruptly, one night I'm home, and I didn't like being home, but I was home, and my father was in Haiti, and they always traveled together. This is the one night she was home with me, and she asked me not to go out. I had I had 2 dates, one with my girlfriend, and then the other one, who I'm going to have sex with. And she asked me to break the date. She said, "Stephen, please stay home. I don't feel like being home alone tonight." Okay, fine, no problem. But there was a problem. So I ended up smoking a joint and falling asleep downstairs in the living room. And then I hear her come out of her bedroom. I was 17 years old, she was 41. Comes out half naked with a robe on, walks towards me and falls. And I'm stoned on some really good pot time, and she falls, and I catch her, and when she falls, I catch her, and she falls in my lap, dead. She died right there. She went to bed perfect, dead. I'm flipped out. Here I am, stoned, don't know what to do. There's no 911 back then, you know, or anything. You can't call 80 because it takes 3 days for dial an overseas call. So I think I don't know what I did, but anyway, long story short, she died 2 weeks later. She was in a coma, and now the only person in my life that I loved that cared about me is gone. I have nobody. And how do I deal with this? I delved into drugs. and I get more and more into drugs, and then I leave my house and I go to Tampa, and that's where my whole life starts again, and that goes into a whole nother segment of really hardcore drugs, sex, and rock and roll. But I just want to just tell you that the other couple of issues, platforms, and I'll bring it back to the story about my uncle, because I'm sure a lot of people want to know about that, is that, you know, drugs got me in trouble, you know, and I ended up getting arrested, and I was set up for drug trafficking for Quaaludes, and I ended up getting convicted of possession, and I went to prison for, at a 5-year sentence in prison. This was 1980. And I went to prison for 2 years in prison in a chain gang. Yes, I was in a chain gang. I was the guy you'd see on the side of the road, swinging the bush axe and the swing blade, cleaning the ditches, you know, along I-95, you know, by Bunnell or Flagler County, and did that for 2 years. Then became, then went on parole. And while I was on parole, if I did anything wrong and messed up, I'd go back to prison for life as a habitual offender. But me, I couldn't follow rules. I never was able to follow rules. So my 33rd birthday, while I was on parole, my 33rd birthday, my dear friend Judy comes over with a birthday present for me. And the birthday present was, she puts this little miniature golf ball and hands it to me and says, "Happy birthday, Stephen." I look at this and say, "What's this?" She says, "It's just something to make you feel good." And then I realized it was crack cocaine. So now I'm on parole, and I gotta be good, and I'm drug tested and all this stuff, and I don't do anything with it. So I take it, I put it on my bookshelf in my bedroom, and then it starts talking to me. And in the book, I tell everyone how it starts talking to me. It says to me, "Stephen, you gotta play with me. You're gonna love me, I'm gonna love you. There's nobody else in this world that's gonna treat you and make you feel as good as I'm gonna do. Come and try me. Come and hug me. Come and take a little piece and smoke it." And eventually I succumbed, and then that's when I started my 2.5-year career as a crack addict. And in the book, there's pictures of me at 6'2" and 110 pounds. Didn't take a shower, didn't bathe for 2.5 years. And this was the time I was working at Temple Emmanuel, too. But Nancy, my boss, didn't know it. Okay, so I got out of prison, lost all my civil rights, and then once I was very lucky. Once I was released from prison and getting rid of all my all my, where I have to be reporting, then I applied and got my civil rights restored. So Amendment 4, which is happening in November, it's a big deal. If you go to my website, I made not a PSA, what did I make? An op-ed. I wrote an op-ed that was produced by this gentleman promoting Amendment 4 to vote for. You can go to MyUncleGloria and you can see it's a 4.5-minute video. So, do I know about incarceration? Yes. Do I know what happens when you're locked up in prison? Yes. Okay? If the question is, if you're thinking, did I ever get raped or sodomized, the answer is no. Why did I get sodomized or raped? One reason. Because I had brains. I could read and write. And I was needed by these inmates to write their writs, read their letters, and in exchange for being protected and not being touched, I was able to do all their legal work. I became a jailhouse lawyer, and it was an even exchange. And prison, prison's prison. I mean, go on that forever. But the biggest problem I had in prison was the loneliness. Anyway, so then I get out of prison, then I come back and move back in with my wife. And at the time I was married. And now we're big crackheads, and and then another thing about one of the third subject about platform is sexual molestation. And all I'm going to say is that Fran, who was my wife, unbeknownst to me, because when you do drugs, you don't feel, you don't think, you're not clear, There's nothing in your life that you do, at least for me, but you wake up in the morning, you come to, you don't wake up, you come to, and you think about how you're going to get your next drug to stay high until you pass out. So nothing I was aware of. I had no feelings. I never cried. I never felt emotion, nothing. The whole time I found out she was being sexually molested by my criminal lawyer, who was a very famous man who many people knew. He was a rabbi, he was a federal judge, and he was a trial lawyer. He was sexually molesting her and her doctor, who was a very famous, prominent surgeon, general surgeon, and chief of staff at Mount Sinai Hospital for umpteen years. He even took out her ovaries on 2 separate situations so she wouldn't get pregnant, so therefore she would continue to be his private little whore. And when I was in treatment, drug treatment, she would confide it to me, because I always asked her, why is it that you never have any sexual desire? And then she broke down, and my brain was clear as a bell. And then I realized, this was it, okay? And he was abusing her, and everything. But when I was high, he was also doing me a service, because he was rich. He lived on Star Island. We used to go over to Star Island all the time, socialize with socialites, and he would write the prescriptions. Made it a lot easier to get Quaaludes from prescriptions than go buy bootlegs. Much easier, much cheaper. Okay. And the only other thing is the transgender. Well, you got the drug addiction, incarceration, sexual molestation. We know who's doing that now. Every man is. Most men are doing it that are in power. You got the bullying, discrimination, bigotry, which is going on every day. People. Oh, by the way, my wife Fran, she committed suicide at age 40. Just a little thing, we had broken up by then, and I had married my second wife, and I got word that she finally was able to OD successfully called a speedball, a heroin and cocaine overdose, and she died at the Charter Club on 36th Street at 40 years old. So her pain was put out because of suicide, big issue. And, I was so angry at her at the funeral. I yelled at her, I cussed her out. I said, you knew that you should have followed me. You saw me go into treatment. You knew I went into treatment. I went into treatment, by the way, recovery on September 24th, 1987. Yeah, and I've been clean 31 years and a couple weeks, So I went from extremes. I went from doing it all the time. Now my brain is so clean, which brought me a lot of good things. Okay, but she killed herself, or she tried and she did it. And then of course the transgender issues, and LGBT issues, and all the different things that are, going on with that. I know. But anyway, my story, and in the book, I go into very deeply the dialogue, and I have a perfect memory. I say that some of the good things that happened to me is I cheated death at least 4 times, mostly on Quaaludes, and 1 or 2 times on crack cocaine. And I could go into it, but you can read it in the book. When your heart doesn't stop beating and you're sweating so much and your heart's like this, and you pray to God, please God, let my heart slow down, because crack cocaine is an upper, coke's an upper, and for me, I was like wired. Anyway, he listened to me, and then when he brought me down, what did I do? Did it again. I was OCD about drugs, okay? And so here I am now, September 24th, 1987, I go into Highland Park Hospital. Oh, the way I got in, ironically, was by the man I hated and wanted him to die, and my sister. They come to my house on Miami Beach, right by Lakeview Drive. They open up the door. I'm there in skinny Speedos. Now I'm 6'2" and 110 pounds.
Is this before he transformed?
Oh yeah, this is 1987.
Okay.
Yeah, when he was butch. Yeah. He comes in with my sister, and says to me, Stephen, we're here to help you. And I said, what for? And I said, just get the fuck out of my house, leave me alone. He says, no, you're sick and we need to help you. I said, I don't need any help. The only help I need is to get off this floor, to kick you in the balls and get you out of my life. And he says, we're giving you 24 hours. We're either going to Baker Act you to a mental institution or you're going to go into recovery. What's your choice? And at the time, I had a moment of clarity, and I chose, I don't want to be Baker Acted because then I'd be on my record. Never mind the fact that I was a convicted felon, never mind the fact that I was a drug addict, but I didn't want to be Baker Acted. Just like I didn't want to do heroin because I was told it's addictive. You know, go figure. You know, people always ask me, would you like heroin? I never tried it. I was afraid I was going to become addicted, so I heard. Anyway, so I went into treatment, and the rest is history. I got out. I came home. I gave my wife the keys. I signed her the house over, and I moved out. And I started life all over again at 35 years old as a virgin with a clean head. Didn't have a clue how I was going to do it. The only thing I did was I went in, I got a little efficiency, went from a nice home to a little efficiency, maybe 300 square feet, and my little white dog. And I did what the program of NA and NA said to do, and I followed it to a T, and I started getting jobs. And that was another humiliating experience when people hired me and didn't even call me anything but asshole. Hey, asshole, come here. Asshole, come here, we need you to do that. But I had to be humble because I was an asshole. So I didn't know, life was fragile. And little by little, things happened. I met a couple people along the road, and then I started realizing my brain and my passion to be excellent and to excel was incredible. I was an addict. I was born an addict. I still am an addict. So I became addicted to more. Instead of more drugs, more success. And so the thing is, everything I do to extremes. I built up a very successful career in insurance, a very successful career in real estate. I wrote this book, took me 19 years to get where I was, to do this. Trying to think what else. Oh, I also did a couple firsts. I was the first person ever in the state of Florida to get a license to sell insurance and real estate as a convicted felon. I fought Tallahassee, and I won, and I was the pioneer. I was the one that made it happen for others. I was a trailblazer. I was also a trailblazer when it came to life insurance and health insurance for transgenders. And there's a big video on my website. ABC News interviewed me, and about 10, 15 years ago. So the bottom line for me is, I consider myself, I'm very, very lucky. I'm blessed, I'm lucky. I just want to share one of the thing. I'm going to open it up for questions. There was two things in life that happened to me after I got clean that were beyond my wildest expectations. And to this day, they're kind of emotional for me because, I never cried. I never felt any kind of feelings. I was numb. I was a walking dead. I found out that I love animals. I love dogs. I'm passionate. I'm a passionate animal person. Anybody knows me knows I have a nonprofit, a 501c3 that I started with a good friend of mine, and I've committed, and it's in writing, in everywhere you read about MyUncleGloria, I've committed 80% of all net profits from my book, from any TV series, radio, TV, a stage, whatever, from here to eternity, is being donated to this charity called animalcarenow.org for the purpose of saving the lives of pets in distress. And some people say, that's a lot of money, Steve. Aren't you worried? I said, well, worried about what? So that's a lot of money you're giving away. I said, well, I have a car, I have a house, I have food. What do I need the money for? I want it because animals, pets. And my executive director who happens to be here tonight. I love her to death, and she is going to carry on after, you know, I'm not able to, and this is my legacy in life. Is, you know, I went from the outhouse to the penthouse, and now that I'm in the penthouse, it's all going to save animals. And there's one other thing that I just want to share that happened in my life. Talk about good fortune. You know, you put footwork in and you get a good fortune. So it was about 1999, somewhere 1999, late 1998. I walked in to this bookstore. It was a warehouse bookstore. It was right off of 95 and Hollandale Beach Boulevard. And I walked in because, I don't know why I walked in. I have no idea why I walked in. And I walked in and I was looking around and I saw this woman. I should say I saw this goddess. And I was like, oh my God, pinch me. I mean, this woman was gorgeous. I mean, everything that I liked in a woman as far as the physical, she had it. The body, the hair, the eyes, everything. I didn't know a thing about her, but I was just incredible. And I wanted so badly to meet her. I mean, I wanted to, you know, I was so addicted and intoxicated that I had to have this, but I was straight. I couldn't take a Quaalude. I couldn't take a couple Quaaludes and say, hey, my name is Steven, you want to fuck? I couldn't do that anymore because those days were long over. Thinking, how am I going to do this? I have to do this straight. Be a man, suck it up, figure it out. Because I don't like rejection. Because that's it. So, I figured, oh God, this is not going to be good. So, I walk up and I'm kind of like eavesdropping in this woman's conversation with the proprietor. And somehow or another, this woman and the proprietor, you know, the woman's brother and the proprietor were friends. So she was looking to take a picture of the proprietor to send to her brother. So me, think fast, Stephen, think fast. So I said, excuse me, I overheard what you're saying. If you'd like, I'd take a picture for you guys. And so she says, oh, thank you, sir. That'd be nice. Now, I could care less about taking a picture. I couldn't give a rat's ass about taking the picture. All I wanted to know was what was her name, where did she live, is she married, and, you know, and I'll take it from there. And I'm shaking. I'm literally like, I'm thinking my bladder's going to bust because I'd never done this before. So I take the picture and I give her back the camera and, you know, and she says, thank you, sir. And I says, oh, you're welcome. And I don't know how I asked. I said, excuse me, my name is Stephen. What's your name? My name is Roberta. Oh, okay. Nice to meet you. And then that was it. She was cold as ice. So I figured, well, this isn't gonna, you know, going anywhere, and I can't take any drugs, so I'm stuck, and I can't. I knew that if I walked out of the bookstore, I'd never see this woman in a sea of 3.5 million people living here in South Florida. The chances were, you know, 1 in a bazillion. Anyway, so I did something stupid again. I walked up to her and I said, excuse me, by the way, do you by any chance, you know, like work around here? Or I don't know how it came out, but she said, I'm a general manager of a Burger King in North Dade. Okay, and I knew that I was over with. I wasn't getting anywhere, and I knew, you know, my time was up. And I walked out of there, and I was like, what am I going to do, Stephen? So the addict in me couldn't let it go. So I got on the phone. This was the days before there was cell phone. Well, I don't know, 1999.
Yeah.
So I called 27 Burger Kings.
Wow.
And then I found out which one she worked at. And it turns out the person that answered said, oh, she's off today, but I can leave a message for her. And I said, well, if you can just tell her that my name is Stephen and I just called because I took a picture the other day and I wanted to find out how it came out.
Like a copy. Oh, okay.
You know, I wanted to know. And there was no reason in the world. I had no interest. I could care less about the picture. It was irrelevant. All I wanted to do was just find out about this woman. And then I did it, and that was it. Now at this time, I was a really busy, successful insurance man. And I was working and living in Miami Shores, had my own office, and getting phone calls all the time, and on and on and on. So, I did my thing, and that was it. What could I do? I'm not going to stalk this person and then get arrested for stalking, so I just let it go. And nothing happened. So then, about 13 months later, I get a phone call, just like I do every day, and say, Shulman and Associates, can I help you? He says, oh yes, hi, I'm returning a phone call. My name is Roberta, and I'm saying, excuse me? And she said, well, you called me. I said, oh, that was like 13 months ago. And I said, the way I remember it is, okay. And she says, oh, okay. So anyway, I remembered who it was, and then we agreed to meet for lunch. I was scared. I was so nervous. Because once again, I only remembered about her, but she was everything that I wanted to die for. She was so gorgeous. But I didn't know anything about her. And of course, I couldn't take any pills. So we ended up meeting for lunch, and it went horrible. I mean, when I waited for her in front of Flanagan's in North Miami, I saw her coming out of her car, and I saw her face, I saw her looks, I saw her body, and I was like, oh my God, don't blow this. Stephen, don't blow it. This was like, got us. So we went to eat, and it was horrible. And I wasn't the very best as far as experiencing all of this being clean. So I ended up having this date with her, and we didn't hit it off. And I walk out, and she walks out, and I said, thank you, nice meeting you. She goes to her car, I go to my car, and that was it. So, and this is the end. So I figured that was it. So then about 3 days later, I think, or 4 days later, I didn't hear from her. So I pick up the phone, and I called her, and I said, how come you never called me? Or actually, no, I think I said, I'm calling you to see if you got home okay. 3-4 days later, And she says, you waited 3-4 days to call to see if I got home okay? And I didn't know what to do. So anyway, we started talking, and she found out that I was a fanatic about music, and I was like an encyclopedia of classic rock. So that's what she liked about me, and we ended up going on a date in a mall. And, we kind of hit it off, and it was a very slow process. It was something that I couldn't believe it, but I mean, oh my God, this is not happening to me. And, this woman this is the sole reason I'm here tonight, because she was angelic. I mean, she was like this person that came out of nowhere, especially being in Miami. I mean, never cursed, sweet, naive, nice, polite, and she was the one, and I want to end my story by saying the reason why I got the idea to write a book was because of Roberta. And how that happened was, eventually I reconnected with Gloria, and my sister asked us to go all out to dinner at a restaurant in Oakwood Plaza. And I was finished with Valerie. We were, she had kids, and it just wasn't working out. So I said to Roberta, I said, would you like to come with me? And, Roberta had no idea what a transgender was or nothing, I mean, she lived in her own world of food. She was a classically trained chef, and all she did, her world was nothing but food. So she agreed to go, and the long and the short of it was, she had a conversation with Gloria that, unbeknownst to me, they hit it off. And she asked me a question on the way back home that made me think, there's something here to this story. And so I put two together in my head, and in my business head and in my addict head, oh my God, here's something else now I can obsess over, and maybe make it happen, because I became an entrepreneur then, and I figured, well, this is another way to make an entrepreneur. And so, since she's not dead, Stephen, maybe you can write a book about a man who is 65 years old decides to cut off his manhood, become a woman, everybody would love it. And so that was the start of the story, all because this woman I met by accident in a bookstore, put the idea in my head. And I told her many times, I said, if you would have ever known me before, you would have stepped over me, away from me, and the last thing, because she's never smoked a cigarette, she's never smoked pot, she's never done drugs. The only thing she's ever done is drinks light diet wine, white wine, and she's like to this day. And so anyway, that's the story. The book goes into great detail, it sucks you in as to, the story, the dialogue, how things happen. And at this point, I want to open it up to any discussions, any comments, questions. I'd like to, have some feedback, please, would be great, if you have any questions. So the floor is yours.
Roberta? Yeah, where's Roberta?
Pardon?
Where's Roberta now?
Roberta's here.
Where?
Roberta, come on.
Come on, Roberta.
I told you don't do this.
Okay. See, Roberta's not here. Roberta's not here. Roberta's not here.
Okay, Roberta's not here.
Okay.
Okay.
But other questions about anything?
When,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes.
I assume Uncle Gloria has passed on?
No,
Oh.
Uncle Gloria is alive and well.
Uncle
Okay.
Gloria's a nice looking woman.
Uncle Gloria is now Aunt Gloria, and since you guys haven't read the book, I don't
you
want to
can't
do a
say.
spoiler
Okay.
alert, because most books, you have the Hollywood ending. I'm just going to say, get the book and read it, because Gloria is alive. And that's about all I want to
That's
tell
all
you,
you need
because
to
I
tell us.
don't want to, unless you want to wait for the feature film or the scripted TV series, get the book and you'll see why I'm answering.
Well, is there going to be a feature film?
If I have anything to say about it, there is. I was offered, by the way, years ago, while I was going through this process of learning about writing a book. By the way, I have no experience, as I've never wrote a thing in my life, except maybe a prescription or forged a prescription. But I never wrote a book. I never had any writing skills. I never, learned anything. I just common sense, trial and error. And I found out that I'm a damn good editor. And I had some coaching, but that was it. So you got to read the book, and you'll answer the question, because I don't want to spoil it as far as Gloria.
Good.
Do you have a question?
No, that's
Well,
fine.
you had a question.
That's
Yes,
fine.
ma'am.
Well, it's a couple things. First of
Yeah.
all, I just wonder sometimes, because I have the book, but I didn't read it all yet. Uncle Gloria or Butch, I know you feel like let down maybe by him, but you just wonder, at least I do, maybe I didn't get to that anywhere in the book, what maybe he was going through his whole life. And it sounds crazy, but I'm such an animal person, and I kind of gauge people a little bit on that. I know you're an animal lover. How about Uncle Gloria?
Uncle Gloria loves animals. Her passion is cats.
Yeah.
Cats.
She's a cat person.
Yeah, but I just think that maybe he or she was so conflicted, and I'm not, because I'm not really experienced with it. You refer to, it's a she, not she.
Well, I would refer to it as something else, but for the book's sake, I want to refer to it as Uncle Gloria. I'm trying to, not do anything about, the ending, the spoiler ending. By the way, in answer to your question, there was a couple, if you read some of the reviews on Amazon, a lot of people told me that they were upset with me because they didn't want it to end. And they wanted to continue. And so I'm in the process of gathering the second book, because the story can't end the way if you know it, it ends.
I'm not the end.
Actually, I have enough content for a second book and third, because I was smart enough when I was interviewing her years ago to ask a bazillion questions. So I have all the answers about her life and the relationship she has with her significant other, which is a weird one. And by the way, I will tell you, her significant other, his name is Dan, he was born Deborah. So if you see the two of them, if you see Gloria
Yeah.
and Dan walking down the street, they were born the opposite sex, Butch and Deborah.
Okay.
Do they have children?
No. Well, yeah, Butch has children.
Right, okay.
Yeah, they're my cousins that I haven't seen in like 50
I
years,
guess.
which is a whole nother story.
Right.
But, so that's, do you have any other questions,
Well, I
ma'am?
guess you have to see.
Well, I mean, I'm always into the animal, your rescue group,
Right?
Yeah.
a little bit about your rescue.
Well, my rescue is really simple. It's called animalcarenow.org. And when I was putting this together and came up with this idea, to keep it simple and make it unique, I was fortunate enough to meet this fantastic woman named Jacqueline Johnston, who is everything that I've ever could dream of having a business partner. She's been in the trenches, she's worked at animal shelters, she's smart, she's attractive. Matter of fact, she's going to have her PhD very soon. She's brilliant, she's no nonsense. She helped me set it up, and just today, ironically, she was in the newspaper winning a federal suit that she brought against a Lake County for defaming her when it came time to euthanizing pets that didn't need to. So she and herself, I'm proud to call my friend, my partner, and she inspires me, even though there's a big age difference, okay? She's like half my age, if not more, and I know that I'm in my third quarter of my life. I only have so much time to make the money, to plow it in to the shelter, to the charity. But our charity is very unique, and if you want to know more about it, it's unlike anything else. And I know that when the time comes, Jacqueline knows what to do, and it will be big because she's great and I love her. And
All the info's in the book, right?
well, it's animalcarenow.org. You can look at the website. The website was done by Jacqueline. It's a very basic one, but there's nothing fancy about our nonprofit. And I'm donating 80%. I've committed it, and it's just that simple. Because my love for animals, my animals kept me going. There's nothing in this world more important than my dogs, to me.
I wondered about your little white dog that you talked about.
Oh, the white dog? Okay, that dog, his name is Topo Gigio. And for those people old enough to remember, there was a Maltese. There was a Maltese named Topo Gigio. And while I was a crackhead, and my wife was a crackhead
That's why I
too.
was worried about.
Yeah, well, she worked at Greenberg Traurig during the day as a paralegal, and by nighttime she was a crackhead. So he was kind of like really abandoned. But then I got him in the divorce, and I gave her the house. Financially, it was a loss for me, but I didn't care. I had to get out. I took the little dog, I brought it to my efficiency, and he had a great life. And I think at about 16, 17 years old, he just passed away. And I was heartbroken, and I knew that was my destiny.
Did you cry?
Huh?
Did you cry?
Oh yeah.
Probably.
Oh, did I cry? Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, I had to know. I cried from the time I got clean. My brain was filled. I had an idea for a charity. It was called Saving and Caring for Our Pets Together. I think it was an acronym of my 4 dogs at the time, and Topo was one of them. So that's what happened. That was years ago. Any other questions? I mean, we go on and on and on. Yes.
How does your aunt feel about the book?
Yeah.
Does your uncle?
Oh,
I don't know.
oh.
Something happened which I don't want to say, because once again, it would spoil the book.
Oh.
But I own one of the things that when we reconciled, and there was a lot of anger I had to her, and I hated him. And in order for me to write the book, I said, I need your permission legally for the rights to your life story.
I was
She
gonna
gave
ask.
it to me, went to an intellectual properties attorney and did everything. And so, you know, I did all this, I spent a ton of money gathering all the information. This took many, many years. This was a hobby. This wasn't a business. This was a hobby on the side. And then something happened about 3 years ago. So in answer to your question, I would guess to say she's proud of it. But also a documentary film came out of this, which you can watch if you want. I didn't have anything to do with it other than it was my brainchild that created the brand MyUncleGloria, and a filmmaker came from LA, which is a whole nother story, and ended up making a feature-length documentary, which is streaming, I think, on Amazon or Netflix or whatever, but you can get it. And I don't, again, I don't want to be vague, but it's gonna ruin the book, the ending, if you know, want to buy it. Yes, sir.
Which actor would you like to have play Uncle Butch or Aunt Gloria?
Well, if the actor that it's funny, there was two actors that I chose in my head to play Butch Gloria. Talk about, you know, being dumb badass luck. One of them was Kevin Spacey. That was my first, from many years, Kevin Spacey. But he isn't playing anything anymore. As you guys know, he's a sexual predator, a gay sexual predator. He's in a lot of deep shit. And the second one was one of my phenomenal actors that I love, Philip Seymour Hoffman. But he was found dead with a needle in his arm from a heroin overdose. So they're not, you know, so I don't know. I was going to say Robert De Niro, but he's probably too old, you know. So that's it. But it's not my fault. It's not my problem. Once they buy the book and they pay me the money, if they ask me, I'll give them my opinion, but it's them to do what they want. Any other questions? No questions? Any questions? No?
How,
Yes.
I was at the bathroom, but how is your relationship with Aunt Gloria now?
We don't have a relationship now. And again, I keep referring to, you know, you have to read the book because I don't want to spoil the ending. So you read the book,
Well, I did
and
read a little bit of that.
it will give you everything you want to know. Yes, ma'am.
I'm curious to know, like, during like rehab, I guess, like, what is it that made it effective for, like, during the rehab period? Like, what exactly made it, like, what were you saying the things that made that effective, such that, like, for the next 31 years you were clean?
I'm sorry, said what?
For the next 31 years you were clean after the rehab.
Okay, the question was, what happened when I was in rehab that made me want to stay clean for the next 31 years? Okay. Well, when I went to rehab, I was forced into it. So I made a deal with myself. The deal was, okay, you bastards, I don't want to be committed to a mental institution, so I'll go into rehab. But I'll show you guys, because I was very conniving, manipulative. I was the type of guy, very manipulative. What do they call it? A con man. And so what I did was I said to myself, all right, I'm going to gain 30 pounds in 30 days. Then I'm going to come out, I'm going to look healthy, and I'm going to be a functional crackhead. Only weekend crackhead. So during this period of eating and everything, my brain started clearing out. And I started learning things and feeling. And I started crying. And when they made you do journals and they made you write things, you know, what's emotions, I started realizing things that I missed in life that I could have had if I wanted to. One was always wanted to be a lawyer. I knew I would be a great litigator. Always wanted to. But I could never be it because A, I had a felony conviction, which today doesn't matter, but number two, because I couldn't function. So all these things that I wanted to do, I knew that I could do. And for me, when I came out, and I realized that I didn't want to leave, they literally had a primer, it was this big pillar, and I hugged onto it, because it was also a nursing home. It was right next to Jackson Hospital. they forced me to leave. I said, no, I'm going to relapse. I want to stay here and take care of the geriatrics. I was scared shitless. I haven't had a clean day in 22 years. I'm 35 years old. What do I know how to do? The only thing I know how to do is be manipulative, steal, manipulate. And here I am. I don't have my tools anymore. So I was given the tool of one day at a time, just think about today, and do this. And I tried it. And I got through the first day. It's like cigarette smoking. If you go through the first 24 hours of cigarettes and you're not dead, well, hey, you quit cigarettes. So I quit. And then the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And then and then of course, then eventually a woman came in my life for a short period of time. And that was fun, very short, but little by little. And I felt, and then I started crying. And then animals. And
You're
that was
lucky
it.
because so many people
I know.
relapse. I mean,
I know. So many
even
people
though they do
relapse.
it one day at a time.
Right, right. But you see, again, I'm OCD. I'm an addict. I switched addictions. Instead of becoming an addict and using every day, I became just the opposite. I forgot to tell you the most important thing. I became addicted to the exercising. I switched addictions. Completely forgot. Completely forgot. So for 20 years, I've averaged 5 to 6 days a week at the gym. Every single day, I'm an addict of exercise. So that's my addiction. And you know what? I'm okay with it. I stay healthy. I'm going to be 66 years old. My brain is sharp as a tack. I have nothing wrong with me except my back, and maybe some people will think I'm nuts, but the point is that I'm in great health, and life is good, and I'm not tied to any machines. I'm not dependent on anything for, like diabetes or anything like that, so I'm addicted to more feeling good, and I get it, and my drug is exercise.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
You speak with a lot of candor, a lot of ease about some very hard times in your life, what some people might call their demons, which is commendable, really. But
Thank you.
I'm curious. Was it as easy speaking to Roberta, who was of course not in the room? But you spoke very much about how her life was very different from yours, and that at one point you said that, well, if you had known me in my past life, I suppose you would have stepped right over me. Was it as easy to share all of this with her?
Absolutely not. I think I kept this from her for years because I'm trying to think. It took me 4 months of being with her, 4.5 months, before I was even able to hold her hand, because she was that angelic. And so I wanted to make sure I found something. I found a diamond in the rough, and you don't find that in Miami. And I did not want to lose it. So there was nothing in the world that I wanted to do. And so I don't remember when it came to be, but I guess over the years, it little by little. But my candor is because if I can help somebody, I can't keep what I have unless I give it away. It's an old cliche. And I must have spoke, if I spoke 100, I spoke 1,000 times in prisons and institutions about that you can change. And a lot of people look at me and say, well, what do you know? Look at you, clean cut, what do you know about suffering? I was a joke. The biggest joke was, people, I had a big insurance practice. I dealt with some very wealthy people trusting me with hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars in their, savings and financial planning and all this stuff. Never once did anybody ask me anything. Nothing. Now, true, I didn't volunteer, but, now that I'm pretty much out of the business and I've got a message, and my message is, that Anybody gets second chances. I got a second chance. I should have been dead. I can go into the death scenes, but the bottom line is, when you take Quaaludes like I take, you drive off a bridge. You drop into the water. You drive into a concrete pole because it looks good because you're stoned. Okay? You fall asleep at a Led Zeppelin concert. Who falls asleep at a Led Zeppelin concert and falls down an outdoor stadium? Who, what do you call it, chases their wife? This is the wife that died. You know, I'm chasing her. She's in a Ford Trans Am. I'm running, and we're stoned, and I'm chasing her, and I'm on asphalt, and I slip. And I slip and slide on asphalt, and every bit of my arms, my face, covered with asphalt, that I spent all day at Palmetto General Hospital being picked out asphalt, and my eyeball, if you see closely, was ripped out of my eye, of its socket, and hanging. And I have perfect eyesight. So my life, I'm blessed. I am blessed. God didn't kill me. And, you know, I've got a voice, and I am here to show that second chances, or, you know, what happens. And my book is my platform, and I go into great length, and, you know, I got great plans, because I've got the time on my hands to be a mentor, to give back to what I never had.
That's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
The other thing, to answer his question, we're only as sick as our secrets.
Yeah, we're only as sick as our secrets.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't have any secrets anymore.
No, you don't.
Well, I guess, yes, I do, but I mean, they're irrelevant. You know? I mean, I don't care who knows. I mean, I don't care if people want to judge me. I got 2 words for them, but it isn't happy birthday. You know, so my point is that this is me, you know, and you know, I've gotten everything. I mean, I've got everything I wanted. The only thing that I haven't gotten back, and that's because I never asked for it and don't want it, is my right to own a gun. And the reason why is very simple. Because I'd be in prison for road rage, for murdering people. Because I know that where I live, I could not. I have road rage, and I've got to manifest it by thinking that when somebody cuts me off or gives me the thing, that maybe they're, you know, having diarrhea or something, and they need to get somewhere faster than I do. You know, running in front of me to get, you know, I have to rationalize it. I can't do it because otherwise I still have a temper, but the thing is, I don't want to own a gun. That's it, and I never asked for it. So I've got everything back. And, you know, the one thing I want to do before I die is I'd love to meet my stepfather and ask him if he's proud of me, because I resented him, I hated him, and that's in the book. I won't go into it.
Is he still living?
No. No, I have no relatives other than a sister, and my life is, I'm blessed beyond my wildest dreams. And just stay tuned. Keep checking in. Are you a social media person?
Kind of.
Okay. MyUncleGloria is my platform. That's my brand. That's my name. There's a lot of things that are cooking that I can't talk about right now because they haven't been formulated, ready. But, you know, like I said, my plans are big. And animalcarenow.org. Okay? That is my 2 passions. You know, if you feel passionate about animals, you know, just check it out. Go to my website. We got a link there. You know, you can see what we do. You don't have to have a college degree to figure out what we do with our money. But if you love animals and care about them and respect them, you know, so I don't care about people. I care about animals. That's my passion. You know, I mean, I can't be any more blunt. So, anybody have any questions?
Are you signing books?
Yes, if you'd like, I would sign your book. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. God bless. Thank you.
What are you gonna book.
He's a great speaker.
Good storyteller.
Thank you so much for coming out. Books are available behind the register, so go ahead and pick one up and get that signed while you have the chance. Thank you.
So you're being
Are you gonna?